In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Carol Sykes, and today we're going to be speaking about Legible. And it's an interesting company. Actually, I'm an avid reader myself, so I'm very curious what Carol is going to tell us about the mission and the direction also that the tool and the team is taking on. The website says Books Unbound, and I think that pretty much says it. But I want to introduce you guys to Carol today. She's going to tell us all about Legible. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Lucas. I'm really excited to be here today.
Very cool. So give us that, I hope I didn't butcher the introduction about you guys, but give us that, 360-degree overview. What is Legible all about?
Legible is essentially a web-based reading platform that was created by authors and book lovers and publishers for readers everywhere. It has a paid platform component, and it has a free component, but primarily it's about giving access to readers all over the world, readers with diverse voices. We're specifically targeting folks and readers who might be marginalized and in overlooked communities. Accessibility is one of our key mottos. So anyone who has reading challenges will find Legible a very beautiful reading experience.
Okay, super interesting. So I want to know a little bit more about this. How did you guys sort of, come to be? Like, what initiated sort of, the founding? Like, what is the sort of the overarching mission that you guys are marching towards?
Great question. So Legible was founded by three founders: Angie Dahl, Mark Holden, and Kalik Hainsworth.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them come from very diverse backgrounds. Angie comes from a background of very deep in the publishing industry. Kalik, as a priest, has a very deep and spiritual connection with reading and speaking to diverse communities. And Mark had a background in the music industry, but also as an entrepreneur and launching multiple companies very successfully in the past. And all of them have a love of reading and authorship and literacy in general. So Legible was founded not long ago, just a few months ago, around the beginning of the year, to launch a category of book reading that is going to change our entire interaction with how we read books. So they saw a real need in the reading community, but also in the authorship community and the publishing community, to have a platform that was much more egalitarian, that was focused on underutilized communities, folks who may not have access to reading, because most of the reading platforms out there, in fact, all of them, require that you download an app or have to use a special device. And we really saw a need to open up book reading for everyone, just have a browser-based community platform where folks could come and read books and engage in a beautiful reading experience online.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to add in that as core values for the company, accessibility, sustainability, and beauty, as well as integrity, is very important to us. So we're looking to provide an experience that is also a beautiful experience at the same time as being accessible and sustainable.
So maybe tell us a little bit more about what a user actually experiences. So if they're heading to legible.com, and guys, if you're obviously interested in reading, you should do that. But tell us a little bit about what can somebody do? What can they experience?
Right. There's a difference between what is happening right now, because as a startup, we're in a journey. We're in a phase. So, and we've got a new homepage redesign coming very soon. But right now, what you can do is you can download a free book and you can buy a book. So and when you open up a book in the browser-based ebook experience, it's a very elegant and very beautiful reading experience. So you can change the fonts, you can change the colors, you can even choose a dyslexic font if you have
Mhm.
challenges reading, you can change the size of the font. So we have more and more improvements that are coming on the platform all the time. So we invite people to engage with Legible and go on a journey as we begin to grow a more accessible book reading future.
Super interesting. Um, How do guys, I know you guys in the early days, so that's always interesting when we have, startups on the show, they share their early plans and maybe the early successes. How do people hear about Legible? Like what is sort of, so far, we always hear the idea of, do what doesn't scale at the beginning. Like how do people hear at the moment about Legible and getting started?
Well, right now it's mostly word of mouth. We've
Mhm.
just started our preliminary test and learn marketing campaigns with two campaigns that are social media based in Facebook and Instagram. So we're just now starting to begin the campaigns. I've only been at Legible for a month.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we're just going to market now with some of those early tests. And I would say that most of the traffic so far has been coming from word of mouth, but we are seeing some really great engagement with our equality and diversity campaigns in social.
Mhm.
We've had almost right now over the last couple of weeks, we've had over millions of impressions and some really good engagement. So I think that the signs are looking good.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's early, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out.
Very cool. What I would love to do is switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your previous experience in marketing as well, because you've been in interesting roles, throughout the years, primarily focused obviously on, leading marketing roles. Um, Maybe tell me a little bit about what your experience is in the challenge for a marketer, right? When I want to bring in innovation,
Yeah.
um, what is sort of, what is the typical challenges that you find and have found and find in your journey?
Um, so my background has been in the technology industry, off and on for about too many years now. So I'd say we're coming up on 27 years, but it's a very diverse background. So in the B2B space, in the consumer technology space, um, and one of the main challenges that we find is around how marketers are measured, really affects the kind of activities that we can take.
Mhm.
So attribution right now is a very big issue in terms of we want everything we do to be revenue attributable. And that can really limit a marketer's creativity around brand, because brand is not always, you can't always draw a straight line to attribution from brand. So we have to get pretty creative in how we understand brand activity um, that can tie back or influence revenue. And I think that the revenue picture is really important, that we obviously as marketers, we want to drive revenue and take activities that ultimately result in growth. Um, but sometimes the pathway, the journey there can be challenging from the business side and the executive level side. Um, uh, I think that the MQL measurement issue is coming to fore in the B2B space. It's not as huge of an issue on the e-com side. Um, but I mean, again, it's all about, what the expectations are from the business side and how to accurately project revenue from at marketing activity.
Makes sense. I mean, you brought up actually quite some interesting points there. Also measurement as a topic in itself. Um, we talk a lot about websites in the Pathway Presents podcast, and I'm curious also about your past experience here. Um, what have you found to be sort of the thing that your team or yourself are typically doing when it comes to figuring out why people don't convert on the pages? Anything that you could share?
I think that the reason why people don't convert is because there's no urgency. One,
Hmm.
there's a lack of urgency,
Hmm.
and there's a misalignment with the brand and messaging. So a campaign may have driven someone to a website, but what they're seeing there isn't aligned with what the ad promised, so the value promise, or they're just not ready to convert. So there may be some interest, but they're not ready. And I think, especially as consumers are becoming more cautious of engaging in marketing, there's an interaction, a number of touch points and interactions that need to take place in order for the conversion to be successful. And I think people want to have more engagement with brands before they actually buy now.
Makes a lot of
Um,
sense. And
yeah.
having that in mind, like obviously there's various types of analytics tools out there. Like how would have you typically decided like what to actually change on the website? Because typically what we see like folks on the show, report something like, sometimes even high as 98, 99% of all website visitors not converting. Like how would have you learned like about the process of actually deciding what to change on the website?
That's a really great question. And I think that websites are almost a living entity, right? So they're always evolving, always changing. And I think that you need to constantly observe them and observe the behavior of of the folks who are not only just engaging and their first experience,
Mhm.
but also try to understand your customer traffic as well, because your customers are going to hopefully come back again and again in order to make a second or third or fourth purchase. And so you have the you have a very short time frame in order to capture someone's attention
Yeah.
the first time they come to you. They need to be able to feel your brand and
Yeah.
to actually understand your value proposition in a very in a
Oh,
very
I have some guests here.
yeah, that's okay, in a very short period of time. So I think that being able to convey emotion and to elicit an emotional response
Yeah.
in your users is really important. So I think that sometimes we underestimate the value of brand and
Yep.
creative and the messaging in order to do that. So we're using heat maps and other tools in order to identify where are people's eyes going?
Hmm.
What are they engaging with the most? So not only like we need to understand before they even click
Yep.
what is attracting their attention. So that's a piece. And then we're working on ways where we can consume data. Where we have a new director of intelligence starting, and he's going to be not only understanding the website traffic and where people go and all the conversion pathways, but understanding how they interact with our database and the actual store products.
Hmm.
And I think that that piece is really important. I mean, these days it's all about analytics, and we can, how much we can measure. And it's just a fact that that kind of analysis is important and required. So that's where we're on a journey.
Super
And then
interesting.
also understanding how to automate that and understand with the power of intent. So if somebody takes certain actions repeatedly, we can make assumptions about how they're demonstrating intent to purchase,
Yep.
right? Um, and then being able to deliver messaging and understanding that journey as people continue to engage with us is really important. Now, we haven't solved that completely yet. We're
Yep.
still on the spectrum of being able to implement that and understand that.
And what would you say as a marketer, like what would be, if you could wave a magic wand, yeah, what would be the thing that you would love to understand better about that journey? Because what we've been seeing on the show, sometimes heat maps tell a piece of the story, page views tell a piece of the story. What is it that, if you could wave that magic wand, like what would be adding to the mix in order to understand the visitors better?
Well, there's been some talk lately around, we need tools that are going to understand if the customer is engaging socially
Mm.
and how to combine that data with their website journey.
Mm-hmm.
How to get a 360 view of the customer is very difficult, right? We right now have a lot of dark spots in the data, right? So we have a lot of aggregate data. So we can say this volume, like this quantity of customers or prospects are engaging with us
Yep.
socially. But I would love to know who they are from the context of, are they also coming to our website?
Yep.
Lining that up with the heat map data, lining that up with how they engage with content.
Interesting.
Are they watching videos? Are they taking all of these pre-intent, like are they displaying in B2B, we call them intent signals, right?
Yep.
So are
Makes a lot
they
of sense.
displaying all these intent signals? And even in in social channels where it's a lot harder to measure, that would be great. And then, obviously it would be I would love to have, their private personal data, but we're not going to go there.
I got it.
So,
Very good.
how to do that in a way that helps us understand the customer completely, other than having them sit beside you and you follow their journey through your site and all of your content. It's all about signals and engagement.
Super interesting. I mean, we could go on and deep into this. Since we're slowly running to the end of the interview, I would love to jump into some rapid fire questions to wrap it up. Are you ready for those?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Could you tell me what's the last book you read?
The last book I read was Galaxy's Edge
Mm-hmm.
2, and it's called Dark Victory. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
big sci-fi fan, and
Very
it's
cool.
military fiction, and I know it doesn't seem to match up, but I just love it. It's sort of like a Star Wars alternate universe.
Cool. What's the one single thing the company is focused on the most at the moment?
Revenue pathway. So how do we start showing value to our investors
Mm-hmm.
and what their revenue pathway is going to be, and working on the getting the website up well, it's up, but it's getting it into shape so that we can start promoting it effectively. So that's coming. We're just on the cusp of some very big website updates
Mm-hmm.
to the homepage, which are really going to help improve a whole variety of features to the site. So we're pretty excited about that.
Very cool. And the last question I would have for you is, if today would be your first day, right, getting out of education, so we're going to the University of Victoria, a little bit of time travel, what's the one advice you would give yourself?
Well, I started in marketing running after I left university, running my own agency. And I started as a freelancer, started in graphic design, and eventually evolved into like a full service marketing offering in Vancouver. We had a small boutique agency and ran that agency for 14 years. And the advice that I would give myself as a young person just graduating from university is, I would say, just be courageous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't worry so much. Just try to be courageous and confidently take those steps forward, because sometimes we second guess ourselves, and I've had moments where it's like, should I do this or should I do that? And it's like, you just have to seize life and move forward with what you think is going to work. Because whenever I've had successes and moved my career forward, it's been because I took those bold steps, right? And it's always great to be cautious, but at the same time, have the courage to move ahead.
Very cool. Carol, I really appreciate you taking the time with us today and share the world of Legible, but also a little bit your perspective. We actually did a little bit of an unexpected deep dive there into intent and intent tracking. Um, it was great. Really appreciate you taking the time. I want to give you the last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Legible, what's the one thing that they should remember?
That Legible is a place for you to have a beautiful, accessible, and sustainable experience reading a book. And we invite you to come on a journey with us as we build a new program that is going to change how books are consumed online.
Very cool. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathfinder Presents.
Thank you so much, Lucas.